Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. We got a special guest on, longtime friend of the pod, Luke G's Field Review. What's going on, Luke G?
What's going on, brother? How you been?
Man, I've been straight, man. How you been? It's a great time to be a Lions fan. I know that.
Depends on who you ask.
Hey.
Depends on who you ask and how you ask. You know, that's how I look at it.
And it's a little weird because for the first time in a very long time, the national media is actually paying attention to the Detroit Lions, having great things to say. And you hear all these great things about the Detroit Lions, and the odds just came out. And I don't know if you pay attention to Vegas a lot, but you guys currently are the leading favorites to win the NFC North for this upcoming season, man. So what's your thoughts on that?
I feel like, you know, when examining the NFC North, they are looking at it with the anticipation of Aaron Rodgers being out of the division. They're looking at it with, you know, just in general of saying that, hey, they're further along in their rebuild, and what they did in the last 10 games, going 8-2 in the last 10 games, that should yield some type of success. But to me, a lot of that is just talking points and lip service from the national media and from the Vegas. Because guess what? They know how to play on people's emotions, right? And they know that people bet with their hearts and not with their minds in most cases. And so if you can play on a person's emotions to get them to invest money in something based solely on emotion, this would be the one to do it, because you want to hear about them in the news. You want to hear about them when you read, right? Every media platform is talking good about them, right? And so at this point, I feel like Vegas understands that. Now, the one thing I will say is Vegas has a point. You know, should the Lions win the division? They should. But then again, I thought that they should have been a way better team record-wise last year. And we fell short.
10 wins, didn't you?
I had them at 10-7.
I had them at 9.
Yep, I had them at 10-7. And the reason I had them at the 10-7, I said they can go further, but I did not trust the defense. And my fears were true, that the defense was who I thought it was. And I think when you look at it coming into it this year, I think a lot of people was expecting for the defense to take the next step. But when I look at Vegas and the question if the Lions should win the division, maybe they should, right? I thought the Vikings were fortunate last year, but they're obviously retooling, so no biggie there. The Packers should be done without Aaron Rodgers. They should be done, right? But we don't know that. Jordan Love may come in and have a whole other problem. And the last time I checked, one of the biggest kryptonites to the Lions defense is a mobile quarterback. So it's a lot of things that I look at that makes me wonder if Vegas is just trying to get you to bet again with your emotions, or is Vegas truly saying, hey, they should win the division? And to me, if that's Vegas standard, if fans believe the hype of Vegas, if fans believe the hype of this offseason, and fans believe what they saw from the last 10 games, then they should be coming in with expectations of you got to win a division. But I think it's only a few who will have that expectation. I think most fans would just say they got to make the playoffs.
When it comes to the defense last year, we already know it was a mess. It was guys running free left and right. When it comes to that secondary, it's like, oh my goodness. But you guys done a lot of work in free agency to better up that defense. Which free agency signing do you think will have the biggest impact for the Detroit Lions this year on the defense side of the football?
If you heard that moment of silence, that's what I feel. Do I like CJ Gardner? Yeah, I do. But he hasn't been healthy. Not one season he's been in the league. And I think that he's a good player? Absolutely, he's a good player. But chances is they're going to probably use him more in the slot as that third safety in the slot. Okay, fine, right? So you get a slot guy in CJ Gardner who's coming in and coming off of a lacerated kidney. That should be healed up. So, okay, great. But we also signed Alex Anzalone. There's nothing about that excites me. Nothing. You go out, you sign Isaiah Buggs. Oh, he's a rotational guy. He should have rotated himself off this team. You could have probably got him well after the free agency period ended. Well, we signed John Kaminsky. I like that move. It's not a bad one. At least I felt like he had a little bit more going on with him, but I can live with that. We bring back Will Harris after signing Cameron Sutton and after you're bringing in Emmanuel Mosley. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what is the role of Will Harris? Like, what are we doing with this? So for me, there isn't a lot for me to get excited about because, I want to see it all come together, right? If you were to tell me, hey, Luke, I'm making gumbo. And I say, oh, Luke loves some gumbo. And I get there and it's in the can. Now I'm trying to figure out why you lie to me. So for me, I need to see it all come together before I can get fully excited about it. I feel like, when it comes to our free agent signings, yeah, I like Chauncey Gardner, but I like the Elliott, but I had the same questions about Elliott. Will he stay healthy the whole season? And Elliott did not. The question is, will Chauncey Gardner stay healthy the whole season? And if he does, what are you as an organization prepared to pay him? Because he's going to want to get paid. So, but for me, in terms of what we did in free agency, I was just okay, whatever, like it wasn't nothing that really jumped out to me that made me go like, oh yeah, this the one, this is it. I didn't get that. I didn't get that feeling, not this season.
Now, if we had to ask you, like, what would be the impact of some of these guys like Cameron Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley? What are they bringing to the Detroit Lions defense per se? Because at least we can agree that both of these guys should be an upgrade compared to what you had last year.
But I don't know if we can agree to that. You know what I mean? We talk about upgrades, right? So let's be honest, right? We talk about upgrades. Anything can be seen as an improvement, right? So let's say, for example, let's say I take a test, right? Let's take it to school. I take a test. The first time I took a test in this class, let's say I got a 75. The next time I took the test, I got a 76. I technically improved, right? But it's still much of the same. It's still much of the same. And when I go through and I look at Cameron Sutton, one of the things that jumped out to me was I watched faster receivers cook him. And I'm not talking about like, let me turn a little heat on. I'm talking about he wasn't even close, right? And for some reason, there's this overly abundant love affair with that, he's going to come in and he's going to be this and he's going to be that. But then I started asking questions. What's different between Cameron Sutton and Mike Hughes? Really, what's the difference, right? Because that's what they said about Mike Hughes, is he's going to come in and do this, this, and this. And Mike Hughes was very forgettable, right? And, then I go through Mosley, and I'm thinking, okay, everybody, the 49ers were so upset to lose him, yet they didn't get him no contract. Stop playing with me. I hate when people try to, reinvent history because they're now on your squad and now they're the second coming of Jesus. Now, could he be a diamond in the rough? He probably could. But he's been in the league just like Sutton for well over 3 seasons. And for the most of the part, he's been just about that. He's been somebody that you was on the team, but was he a difference maker fully? Depends on who you ask. Like if you ask his mom and dad, yeah, he was amazing, right? But for me, what makes him different from picking up a guy like Jacobs that we picked up when we added Jacobs back? What makes him different from him? It's much of the same to me. There's nobody that jumps out in that regard to me when it comes to that cornerback position. And so this idea of an upgrade, I want to know what I would love to know what the Lion fan base expect in terms of an upgrade. Because for me, I feel like we swapped out the players for the same players. You want to tell me that, Amani Oruwariye was a liability? Okay. Because I highly doubt that many of the Lions fans were watching Steelers games that close. Or 49ers games that close. And the one thing I know about the Steelers, because my entire family judges me for not being with the family he enjoys the most, which is a Steeler, is Steelers don't let good defensive players walk. They don't do it. They just don't do it. If it's like, I remember when they had Joey Porter, they waited till Joey Porter got on the other side of his prime and said, oh, okay, we can probably live without it. Lamar Woodley, he got on the other side of his prime. Okay, we can live without him. And the list goes on and on and on. The only person that they didn't even really have a chance to let walk on because he retired was Troy Polamalu. But Ike Taylor,
they pretty much forced him to retire because he didn't want nobody else.
Yeah, and so you know what I'm saying, they don't let good defensive players go. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that he's not a good defensive player? No. Does that mean he's not going to make plays? I'm sure he is, right? I'm sure he's going to make plays. But the reality is this idea of upgrade, please tell me what that looks like. If you're telling me that it's an improvement, sure. Upgrade is questionable for me because, like I said, you can go from a 75 to a 76, and technically that's an upgrade / improvement. But you're still in the C grade average.
Now, we've been on the defensive side of the ball, but you guys also signed the running back who I'm a pretty big fan of, and David Montgomery, who changes teams in the division. How do you feel he fits into the Lions offense? He'll be replacing Jamal Williams. A lot of Lions fans were really upset that you guys didn't resign him.
A lot of Lions fans, I think, need emotional support animals, right? Because I love the David Montgomery signing. It was my favorite signing of the free agency. It's the one that I think makes them the most scary and dangerous. Don't get me wrong, Jamal Williams was good. Love the attitude, love the energy, love all that, right? I don't take nothing away from him. I told Lions fans the moment he broke Barry Sanders' record, if you think he coming back here for a discount, you're fooling yourself. Everybody go, well, he took $4 million with the Saints. He wasn't taking that with you. And to prove that to you is they said that they gave the same deal that they offered David Montgomery, they offered Jamal Williams, and he thought it was disrespectful. And I told people what was going to happen. I said, he's going to tell them, but I broke Barry's record. That record has been standing for years, and I broke it, right? And my thing is this. When I look at David Montgomery, what he brings to the table, I don't care about the stats. Throw the stats out, right? I saw a really good player stand out from a really bad team. I saw a player that half the time was getting captured in the backfield, and then I look up, he's freaking 5-10 yards down the field. I'm like, what the hell just happened? I see a person who makes it hard for you to have an offense be a tail. Excuse me. So what I mean by that is, like, when you look at Jamal Williams, when he came in, if I was on the defensive side of the ball, I would assume that you're 90% running the ball. You won't have that problem with David Montgomery because he can catch up the backfield, right? He can do all these things that mixes it up. And in terms of a change of pace back, he can get you those hard yards. He can get you those grinding yards. It's my favorite signing. It's by far my favorite signing. And you want to talk about an upgrade? That's an upgrade. That's what an upgrade looks like. You know what I mean? Like if you go from say we had went from Jamal Williams to say like Ronald Jones, that's much of the same, right? But to go from Jamal Williams to David, now that's an upgrade. That's not going from a 75 to a 76. That's going from a 75 to an 88 to a 90 because he's going to bring so much more to your team that you was never going to get out of Jamal Williams. That's a signing that I'm in love with. That's the signing that I'm like, yes, I want to see that. Those are the signings that I'm used and expected to seeing from the Lions to have. And that's why I get excited about him. But to the Lions fans who act like, oh, well, we lost Jamal Williams, y'all, like y'all do all the time, y'all will be just fine as soon as the first game happens and y'all will forget about him. It always happens.
Everybody, Lou G doesn't hate all of the Detroit Lions free agency signings. He just is really skeptical, but he is really excited. At least we can say he's excited.
Oh, I am. I'm excited for the season.
Montgomery.
Yeah, I'm excited for the season, and I'm excited for David Montgomery. David Montgomery, to me, is going to change the way things happen because I watched him on the Bears, and I'm like, bro, can we just tackle this brother? Like, seriously. I watched him. And then there would be other games where, I'm like, why does it seem like this dude just can look like he's there, but then not be there? And I wanted him when he came out of college. And we didn't get him then. So, sometimes things come full circle. Now funny thing is no joke, and I wish I can show you this, but, I play Madden, right? And I play the franchise mode, and I like to build my teams. And ironically, we went to the offseason just recently, and the two free agents I picked up were David Montgomery and Chauncey Gardner, right? And I did that, and everybody in the league months later came down and and say, "Bro, did you hear y'all added?" I'm like, "What? Like, you added?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I signed him in free agency." They're like, "No, in real life." I went, "What?" Blew my mind, right? And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Now people say, "Yeah, but you just said you're not that big." I said, "No, I'm happy with Chauncey Gardner. I just hope that he can stay healthy for the whole season."
And speaking of Chauncey Gardner, what impact or what do you feel he brings to the Detroit Lions defense when it comes to schematics and from an X's and O's standpoint? Is he strictly going to be a safety? Because you do have Kirby Joseph, somebody who I really loved a lot out of Illinois. You could move him to the slot. Like, what impact, what role could he potentially have?
Yeah, you can't move Kirby to the slot. Gardner's going to be the guy I think that's going to move around. I wouldn't dare put Kirby in the slot.
I meant Chauncey. I meant Chauncey.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you said put Kirby in the slot. No, you put Kirby in the slot when you want to give up plays, because in my opinion, I watched a tight end do him dirty. I watched a tight end from the Bears do him dirty. That tight end ain't that fast. You'd have thought that tight end was Pitts. It's not. He's not Pitts. That's not Ingram. You know what I mean? Like, no, we're not gonna do that. So I feel like they're gonna use him as a hybrid. This is a guy who's played linebacker. This is a guy in the league. In the league, he's played linebacker. He's played cornerback. He's played safety. And so I suspect that they're going to use him in that way. Put him everywhere. Put him at linebacker. Put him at safety. Send him on blitzes and stuff like that. Let him get involved in it. See, he fits that mold of grit that they talk about. That gritty guy who wants to be involved. Yeah, do that. But no, he's gonna be, I think, a rotational piece on certain packages where it'll be him and Tracy Walker, and whoever they decide at cornerback, we'll see. We'll pray about it. But I think, yeah, they're gonna use him all over, and that's how they should use him. You want to give him opportunities and create space. But I wouldn't dare put Kirby Joseph in the slot. That's a setup for failure. That's like taking your ice cream out off your cone and walking into like a sauna. It's just gonna melt quickly. So no, I think they're gonna move him around. I think they're gonna use him to confuse, to set blitzes and to set different type of coverages. And I think that's a good thing. So again, it's a good signing. But can he stay healthy for all 16 games?
Now, I don't know how deep you've watched Chauncey Gardner, but from your early impressions of him, what are the two best traits that he has that are going to be useful into Detroit's defense? I know you touched on versatility, but what else?
The reaction. His reaction to the ball is everything. And so to me, I love a player who has a great deal of reaction. He trusts his eyes a lot. And when you look at many of the interceptions that he got, it was just reaction. Oh, the ball was let loose. Boom, let me react on it. Split second thoughts like, boom, oh, it's loose. And some of them were just reactions where it's like, oh, that ball popped up. Let me get that. He never stops tracking the ball with his eyes and reacting to the ball. And I feel like if the ball was somehow accidentally punted to the bathroom, he'll still pick it off because he'll react to where it's at. So to me, having that versatility, having that ability to react in that regard, to be quick with it, those are the two traits that they love. That's what people look for. Those are the things that make me excited about adding him, right? Because it's that reaction, And to me, anybody who can have that great deal of reaction, that's where it's at. So, when you look at most cornerbacks in the league, the best of the best are able to react to the ball. and do it in a split second. And so too often I see cornerbacks who attempt to play the receiver and they do that wrong. And the ones who try to play the ball just want to look like they made an effort, but they was never really in position to make a play. And so he would change that with his ability to be able to read and react and play in different spots to confuse the defense, the offenses that they're going to play.
If you guys haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to Luke G's Field Review. Luke G, let the people know where they can find you at. Shameless plug.
Hey, it's nothing shameless about this at all. This is absolutely well worth the moment. So look, again, I'm on Luke G's Field Review on YouTube, where it's a show that's definitely about the Detroit Lions, but it's about you too. You can feel free to hop in, even if you're not a Lions fan, and tell me I suck. As long as you're willing to have a respectful conversation, I'm down for it. And then on top of that, I'm also on Twitter at Luke LFG, and on Instagram I'm at Luke G's Field Review. So it's not hard to find on there neither. And you can hit me up if you ever want to join me on the show. Maybe I'm playing, maybe the Lions is playing your team that week. Hey, I get you on. Let's talk about it. I don't shy away from a good conversation, and that's pretty much it. It's going to be raw, right in your face, and honest. I'm going to keep it objective, and so the emotions are checked at the door, and just trying to keep it realistic about what I see from my team.
Make sure that you guys go ahead, subscribe to Luke G's Field Review. I will have the link to his YouTube channel and all his social media platforms down in the pinned comment section down below in the description. And Luke G is somebody that if you're a diehard football fan and you love the more logical, analytical side of the game, unbiased opinion, straightforward, not really too many emotions involved, then Luke G is most definitely the place for you to be if you are a Detroit Lions fan or just a fan of the NFL in general. I've been dying to talk to you about this, man. I haven't talked to nobody else about it. I haven't even talked about it myself. I've been wanting to talk about it for the last couple months, but I said, what, I'm going to save this for Luke G. What should the Lions do with the 6th overall pick, or who should the Detroit Lions draft 6th overall?
In my opinion, I'm looking at impact, and it's not just right now, but long-term too. And so, I don't like the idea of cornerback at 6. I know that everybody is like, oh my God, what do you mean you got to get a corner? You could have had a corner last year. Could have had Sauce Gardner. You took Aiden Hutchinson, all right? So not saying that we're not happy with Aiden Hutchinson, but I don't want to play this game. I've been screaming we needed a cornerback for the last two years. I told people when Okudah came out, he's not worth the top 10 pick, let alone a top 5. And people thought I was joking and I was wrong about it. Well, that aged really well. And so the reality is if I'm sitting up there, I'm telling myself, what can I do that makes the most logical sense and that can be followed? And to me, that's take a quarterback. Now, if the quarterback is not there, let's say take whoever your top 3 quarterbacks are, right? If your top 3 quarterbacks are Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richards, for whatever good reason you think Anthony Richards is in your top 3, that's your power to the B. If one of those 3 is still on the board and you're at 6, you take them. Well, Luke, that doesn't make sense. Well, yes, it does. Jared Goff has a contract that really has this year and next year left on it. And if you let him go ahead and bounce next year, you get almost $30 million back in cap space. $30 million. You know what you can do with almost $30 million? You can do a lot with that kind of money. But I would take Hendon Hooker at 6. Oh, well, Luke, but he hurt. I don't care. I don't give a care he's hurt. If he wasn't hurt, he would have been one of the top draft picks in this draft. He'd have probably almost been between the 2nd or 3rd quarterback taken off the board anyway, had it not been for his injury. Well, Luke, there are teams who need quarterbacks who can still take him, and he probably won't go into the 2nd round. Yeah, because they're going to think and hope that people skip on him because of that injury. But the reality is this. You don't have to be one of those people. Well, Luke, why we can't get him at 18? Okay. Well, let's play the devil's advocate game. You look at the teams between our pick at 6 and 18, a lot of those people need a quarterback. And if you think we can get him in the 2nd round, well, newsflash, it's not for the faint of heart that the Rams are trying to move on from Stafford to get some relief in their cap space and to get younger at the position. And they pick ahead of you in the 2nd round. And you look at another team, a team that many people may not have thought about, but here's a fun one for you. the Baltimore Ravens. You see, we act as if though that these other teams would just say, forget it. But sometimes teams will look at their situation and say, I don't mind waiting a year. And seeing how he's going to sit anyway, I will take Hendon Hooker. Now, to the Lions fan base and the people who are not Lions fans who think that I have lost my mind, remember, this is the same team who took a hurt receiver with an ACL injury and let him sit. And they had no problems with that. They then went out and spent $10 million for a one-year deal on DJ Chark, right? And if we can allow a receiver, because I've never, ever heard of a team drafting a receiver high to sit. I've never heard of that. Not until Detroit. All right. And so all I'm saying is if we can do that with a receiver, why not a quarterback? Because guess what? Although, let's say, for example, that he hurt, but he's able to still play. If you look at the Lions right now, there is no backup quarterback. The only quarterback on your roster is Jared Goff. And so I will get my future quarterback. On top of us, not like, to me, I don't expect for the Lions to be picking top 10, top 15 next year. So if you want a quarterback next year, you're trading up and you're probably giving up the majority of your draft capital. I don't want that. Now, let's say, for example, to the people who hate that idea, I offer you option number 2. You really gonna not like this one. I would just draft Bijan Robinson. Oh, come on, Lou. We just took David Montgomery. I love David Montgomery. Yeah, but if you do, I said I love David Montgomery. But we got DeAndre Swift, and DeAndre Swift, who I love, hasn't been healthy. And the Lions have ran 3 running backs before. So my attitude to it is, who gives you the most impact if you're stuck at 6? It's Bijan Robinson. There isn't there isn't a cornerback you can take. And many of y'all are gonna say, well, what about this player? I haven't got to that. I'm just walking you through your options. But now, I would take Bijan Robinson.
Let me ask you about this. All right. You have James Houston and Aiden Hutchinson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Carter, with what's been going on lately, there's a real possibility that Seattle says, you know what, we'll take AR. And the teams ahead of Seattle are kind of mostly looking at QB, Colts, maybe Cardinals probably take Will Anderson most likely. But if Jalen Carter's there at 6, is it worth taking the risk?
You draft him. You draft them. You draft them. Don't you blink twice. Don't SOS nothing. Do not pass go and collect $200. You draft them. Your interior of your defense is not strong enough. I love Aleem McNeil, but he needs some help over there by himself. And as much as I like Kaminsky, that's great, but you draft him. If he's there, you take him. Because anything that they want to talk about, he may have some character. Where did these character issues come in at? I didn't hear nothing about no character issues until people tried to figure out how to correlate him to bad media and on something that he didn't do. Was he racing that night? Sure. Was his car the reason that the other car crashed? Nothing indicates that. Oh, but people thought even making up stories. He was driving drunk. Really? So you mean to tell me he was driving drunk, racing, and made it all the way home drunk? Bypassed every police officer who was looking for him in his car. I got it. Come on now. If he's there, I'm taking him because I need to take the talent. I want the guy that's going to be there. And the reason I didn't go with him at first is because many Lions fans are like, well, he got concerns and he came into the workout. He looked out of shape. Y'all was all willing to take other people who were in that same position. Oh, well, that I heard rumors that he can't play all 3 downs. Neither was Davis when he came up out of there. And all the Lions fans wanted him. We also added, at one point in time, we added Snacks Harrison, who couldn't play all 3 downs, and we were happy about that. I don't need him to play all 3 downs. I need him to wreck shop on 1st and 2nd. And on 3rd and long, we'll put in Kaminsky. That's what he's there for. That's what he's there for. So I don't need him to do that. I need him to be disruptive. Oh, he came in 9 pounds heavy. I mean, this is going to sound delusional to many people, but since when has it been an issue for your D tackle to be fat? Like, when did that start? When did all of a sudden now a heavy set D tackle seem strange? Everybody's not going to be built like Aaron Donald. What Aaron Donald does is mentality. It's not body, it's mentality. And so, much like how John Randall was, that, it was a mentality with him. So, no, I don't want to hear that. My first option is if Jalen Carter's there, I'm taking him. You know, not realistically, my biggest first option is trade down. But I always like to live in the reality. What if I can't trade the pick? And if I can't trade the pick, I'm taking Jalen Carter if he's there. And if Jalen Carter's not there, I'm going quarterback. And if quarterback that I want is not there, I'm going Bijan Robinson. Why? Because guess what? The deal that you gave David Montgomery allows for him to still be there in the capacity to be a tandem. And that means that Swift deal is getting ready to end, and you'll still have 2 dog running backs to wreak havoc on people. I can live with that.
Earlier, before we started recording, you were talking about Brad Holmes, and you had some really strong opinions about Holmes.
Concerns, not opinions, concerns.
What are your concerns with Brad Holmes? Why are you skeptical about Brad Holmes? I'm
not skeptical though, JT. I don't want to because I realize that it's the way things are worded that gets people to think a certain way. I'm not skeptical of Brad Holmes. I am critical of the things that Brad Holmes have done in terms of resolving the biggest issue with the Detroit Lions. If you were to go back to the previous coach regime and the general manager before he came and ask every Lions fan and every media person what is the worst part of the Detroit Lions, they would have told you defense. They'd have said under Matt Patricia, all 3 of those years, the defense was hot garbage. Right? He comes in. He's been here for 2 years. This is his 3rd year. The worst part of the Detroit Lions is what? Defense. And so when I bring that up because I watched a fan base bring out pitchforks and flamethrowers and say fire Dan Campbell. And I'm thinking, you do realize Dan Campbell's an offensive guy. You do realize that the offense was a top 5 at one point, top number 1 scoring offense. I said, but when you go through and you look at when they went 1-6, it was because of the defense. You score as many points as you did against the Eagles and you give up more. You scored as many points as you did against the Seattle Seahawks and you give up more. And you steady do this repeatedly. You give up a big play twice to the Vikings to lose that game. Don't even get me started on the New England game. We can't talk about that. And when you needed a win to give you a chance to get to the playoffs, what do? You give up 241 yards of rushing in the first half against the Panthers. And so the biggest issue has been defense. And when I look at the last 2 drafts and the people who say that, oh, you couldn't fix the defense in 1 draft, you're lying. You're absolutely lying. To the people who say, oh, our salary cap was messed up, you're lying. That's another lie. These are myths. I keep the receipts. We had cap space. We had the ability to make moves. And my issue with Brad Holmes is, why do you keep investing in hurt players on this prove yourself to me stuff? Like, what is this? Every person he brings in has a knee injury. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not being funny. That's the reality, y'all. They come in with ACL injuries all the time. And he gets them to come here, and people think, oh, these are cheap deals. But most of them, $10 million for 1 season? For DJ Chark, who came off of a knee injury? That's a lot of damn money. You know, we were paying these dudes. People forget. I watched all those in the den videos where you got Dorsey over there calming him down when he was getting ready to trade up for Sewell. When it was clear to everybody who's paying attention that Sewell was not being drafted before any of those people. He was getting ready to trade up for Levi Onwuzurike, and Dorsey stopped him on it. Like he gets real antsy. And then what happens is the Lions start taking L's, and the first thing everybody wants to do is go to the easy target. Oh, you got a meathead coach, and he clock management and blah. What are you talking about? Coaches get fired when their side of the ball don't perform. Don't believe me? Go talk to the Vikings. There's a reason why Mike Zimmerman is not there anymore. The Vikings defense stopped performing. He had to go. Don't tell me that it's not like that when I look at the Denver Broncos, who go out and get an offensive coordinator and hack it, and they take all this big chances and this big swing to get Russell Wilson, and your offense sucked. He had to go. So at the end of the day, there's examples type of examples. When your side of the ball is not performing, they usually get rid of you. And it happened with the Lions. Matt Patricia is supposed to be a defensive guru, the rocket science. But for 3 years under his belt, the defense was hot garbage.
I'll play devil's advocate with this one, okay? Because, like, I hear your criticisms. You feel me? But I do think, like, we do have to give Brad Holmes some credit with how he's drafted, and not just with Aiden Hutchinson. James Houston out of what's that university? Jackson State. There you go. He was a pleasant surprise. I don't really think too many people expected him to have the kind of rookie season that he had. So it's like that was kind of a late round gem that Brad Holmes was able to draft. Yeah, I hear you on the fact that he has, a weird fetish with bringing in guys who have like injury history on prove it deals. And the whole 1 year prove it, try to find a bargain, try to find the whole upside thing doesn't really pan out most times in free agency. But with Jameson Williams, though, I think, I probably would have traded up for him if I knew that I was going in. Well, not trade up for him, but I probably would have drafted him if he was on the board. With the fact that, I'm going into a season where, I would love to make the playoffs, but I'm still having that rebuild mentality. So I'm willing to wait for a guy like Jameson Williams to come around because I know what that potential is going to look like. And when Jameson Williams got on the field, even though he played sparingly, the impact wasn't huge. It's like he had a good amount of flashes that show you, hey, okay, we see what this guy can be if he reaches his full potential. And Brad Holmes, he has made some questionable signings, some that haven't panned out. His free agency signings, like you alluded to, Mike Hughes earlier, didn't really work out. But I think the rookie draft class that he brought in last year was pretty solid for the most part. I think with Brad Holmes, I wouldn't say like I'll be more critical of him. I do think if I had to grade him on a scale of A through F, I probably would give him a B, not a B minus or a B plus. I'll give him a B. I think he's done a pretty good job, at least building up the young core that the Detroit Lions have. What's your thoughts on that?
I won't disagree with your grading, right? But let's look at the reality. You go up and you trade up 20 spots, give up draft capital to take a receiver who couldn't even help you, who you technically didn't even need. You still had the number one scoring offense, and he wasn't even on the field. Wasn't used at all. Wasn't useful at all. Yeah, he had a few splash plays, but you know what? I hate to break it down like this, JT, but you've grown at this point, so I can be a little bit more rated R. Even a blind squirrel gets a nut. Right? Everybody gonna get opportunity, right? And I'm not trying to downplay it, but the reality is to sit there and look, and you in a position, you trade up 20 spots, and you go out and get an offensive player that we not only didn't even use, dropped a lot of passes, showed some signs of divaness. Then you want to get critical about him in the offseason, like, oh, come on now. Meanwhile, your defense is getting gashed. Meanwhile, you still needed a linebacker. And I would have much rather had Devin Lloyd over having a guy like Jameson Williams. Why? Because you gave up 241 yards in the first half against the Panthers. And don't get me started on all the other plays that you gave up on long runs against other opponents. Your linebacker room is about as strong as a alcoholic beverage at Chuck E. Cheese. It was not going to do anything for you. And I'm just being honest about it. And so you took that receiver after you just re-signed Josh Reynolds, after you had Amon-Ra St. Brown, after you added DJ Chalk, you still had Khalif Raymond. You rid out and re-bought back Trinity Benson. You still had Quintez Cephas coming off an injury, and you go and draft. Well, I just couldn't pass it to talent. Okay. So I go back and I ask you this question, JT, right? Not saying that what you said was wrong, but you were playing devil's advocate. Do you expect Jameson Williams to be better than Calvin Johnson?
Nah,
me neither. I don't either.
I will say this though. I did have Jameson Williams graded out as my number one wide receiver. And if you look at my wide receiver rankings, my QB rankings, RB rankings, most of them are pretty solid for the most part. And if you watch, some of my videos about prospect or, like players who I really like that teams drafted, such as Jack Jones, cornerback out of Arizona State that New England drafted in the mid portions of last year. He ended up being one of the best rookie cornerbacks in the league. Nobody really talked about him. It's like, I think the potential of Jameson Williams is that he could be one of the best receivers in the league, because we know that speed kind of kills, and speed is something that a lot of people are looking at. And I just look at the upside for Jameson Williams, which I am expecting a big season out of Jameson Williams. I'm not one of those people that's going to make excuses for Jameson Williams if he doesn't go out and he shits the bed this year. Like, I'm going to just be straight up honest with you. 2023, this year, I'm expecting Jameson Williams to have a Pro Bowl caliber season and at least over 1,100 yards.
No, listen, if you get that kind of expectation then as a fan, I'm like, cool. I expect you to have that. But whenever I hear people do this hype over Jameson Williams, I ask them, is he going to be better than Calvin Johnson? And nobody wants to say yes to that. And so if he's not better than Calvin Johnson, then let's hold our horses acting like we just stole something. We didn't steal nothing. We could have got Pickett, who went to your team. We could have got him and been just fine. Just fine. Right? And again, the worst part of this team 3 years in under Brad Holmes was, well, we're gonna say the third year because it's just his third year, but it's still the defense. Most of the games you lost last year was due to the negligence of the defense. And that makes it 5 years of neglecting the defense. And so my only critical thing with him is I would rather he address the defense appropriately. That's all it is. Last year, I was screaming, take cornerback, take a safety, take those guys. Then Kirby Joseph come in and get a few interceptions against Aaron Rodgers, and everybody crowned him. And then he turned right around the next week and get torched by a tight end that nobody really talked about. Like, I wish I could make this stuff up, but I'm not. This is just the reality. Well, he's a rookie, Luke. Okay, cool. But so is Sauce Gardner. Well, everybody ain't Sauce Gardner. I know.
Yeah, Jack Jones looked pretty good.
Jones, Tariq Woolen. That's what I'm saying. Keep going. You can go down the list. I don't want to hear this rookie talk. Because at the same time that these people want to tell me, oh, he was a rookie, I don't hear that rookie talk from Malcolm Rodriguez. And I'm telling you right now, this is how you know the linebacker room was weak. Malcolm Rodriguez won't start on no. If you looked at the season last year and the rosters were set for the 53-man roster, Malcolm Rodriguez wouldn't have been one of the starters, only on the Detroit Lions. And so my attitude to it is I'm always going to be on the wait and see. I want to see him really fully, impactfully address the defense. What he does is he gets real cheap on the defense, and he always gives a really good weapon to the offense. He doubled down on Jared Goff when he restructured that deal and gave him guaranteed money where we could have let him go and picked up maybe over $40-something million in cap space, But he doubled down on him. He been doubling, tripling down on Jared Goff by adding everything he could to that man. He's giving him everything. Meanwhile, I have to watch Aaron Glenn figure out how to make chicken noodle soup with tomatoes. And I'm trying to figure out why are we screaming fire the head coach? That's my only criticism of Brad Holmes. He has not been perfect. I'm not going to say that. Nobody is. But I'd be damned if I come in and look at a team and say the worst part of the team is defense, and I invest all my high-end energy into the offense. And that's what he did.
You think he was saying, well, it's like, it's not like he hasn't attempted to improve the defense, but I get what you're saying. But he hasn't, though. He hasn't. But what about this, though? He definitely could have whiffed on James Houston. Now,
so let's talk about the James Houston thing, right? Because I love that we have to talk about these late picks and stuff, right? And I get it, right? James Houston was a pleasant surprise. I love that. It was a great thing. Malcolm Rodriguez for a lot of people was a pleasant surprise. I love that, right? But now look at it. For all the pleasant surprise that James Houston was, what do you see the media and everybody still mocking to the Lions? Edge rusher. Now they want to act like James Houston can't be an every down edge rusher. I don't know why, but that's what they're doing. So my thing is, yeah, we can give him credit for that, but for every guy you name like that, I can give you a guy he drafted that you can go, oh, like Levi Onwuzurike. Right? You want to tell me about Malcolm Rodriguez? Let's talk about Iffy. Right? So, yes, you're not going to hit on every pick. I get that. Right? But what we're doing is we're choosing to selectively pick the best parts. I'm looking at the big picture. And what I'm saying is even the guys that you name are late round picks. The highest pick that he took for the defense came in Aiden Hutchinson. Prior to that, the highest pick that he took for the defense came in Levi Onwuzurike. When you go to the free agency, the biggest free agency defensive acquisition he added was who? I'll wait. But watch this. Let's flip it to the offensive side of the ball. Name the big offensive acquisitions that he added. You can go down the list. Chart. You can go and just in free agency. David Montgomery. He took a chance on Terrell Williams. Perryman, he brought him in. He was bringing in. These are all hurt people, all scraps. He traded for Trinity Benson. Right? He's added so many things. He brought in Jamal Williams. Right? You can add all these things in. I'm not just looking at the draft. I'm looking at the big picture. I'm looking at free agency. I'm looking at trades. I'm looking at the draft, the whole picture. And to me, my criticism comes from that. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't hate the man. It's not that. I just don't like when people get to saying fire the coach. And I'm trying to figure out, well, who are these defensive players that you like? You didn't get them until year 2. Right? You get them in year 2, and it's like, okay, cool. But
I get you.
All his picks, you look at his first draft, who was his top pick? His first draft.
That was 3 years ago, right? That was Jeff Okudah, wasn't it?
Nope.
That's
Quinn. I want you. See what I'm saying? And as a guy who covers the whole NFL, I know you be paying attention to this stuff. So I'm asking you, who was his first pick?
Man.
And the reason I'm asking you that question is because it's going to show you something that you're going to go, oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Man, I can't even remember. You got to tell me.
All right. So if you go through and you were to look at Brad Holmes' very first draft, where he got a chance to make his very first pick, he took Penei Sewell, a guy who was supposed to be a perennial left tackle. He brought him in and made him a right tackle. And in most circumstances, people they would have scalded him for that. And in most people, the Lions fans who did it was like, oh, you know, you get him, you can trade Taylor Deck. And I'm like, no, you complete the offensive line by getting him and let him play right because he can play right. And then when it's time for Taylor Deck, yeah.
Like
and when Taylor Deck, go ahead.
Like a lot of people got this misconception that like you can draft a right tackle and a left tackle and they can play whichever spot just because they just look at it as offensive tackle. But I was talking to somebody who plays offensive tackle, and he was like, you know, even a lot of people just look at it as playing tackle, but making that transition between the opposite sides isn't that easy. It's kind of foreign a little bit because people look at it, the casuals look at it as, oh, it's offensive tackle, but it's different technique. It's like learning how to write with your opposite hand that you're not that strong with.
Yep. And so again, I don't scold him for doing that. I'm just showing you that he invested into the offense heavily. He did. Because after he did that year, after he took Tyrell Williams and all the other people, he then I wanted Amon-Ra St. Brown in the second round. I thought that, you know what, if it's no way he's going to slip. He slipped to the 4th. I went, oh my God. When we took him, it's video evidence. I lost it. I was so happy, so excited. Him and Derek Barnes. Now, Derek Barnes, in my opinion, is not being used the way that I would expect him to be used, but I get it. And I'm starting to realize that a lot of these players that people want to say are not good or not bust, they're not busted. They're not good. They're just not being used the same way that they were used in college that made you want them in the first place. But when you go through and you look at it, he's invested in the offense. And his idea where he drafted all these players. These are all defensive players. I don't care. You took it. I don't care. Your acquisitions, for most part, you built up the offense. And you did that heavily in the first year. And you can't tell me the second year he built up the defense because that's not what happened. He drafted who he drafted, and he added a bunch of scraps. How the hell does Alex Anzalone keep getting a job with us? Like, I want to know what pitches he got. How does Will Harris get a job with us? You know,
let me ask you this. Let's segue to this, right? What are some of the biggest needs that the Detroit Lions have, as we approach the draft, because that's just around the corner? There are a lot of mock drafts that still have the Lions taking a receiver. A lot of Lions fans like the idea of potentially drafting. You watched a lot of Hendon Hooker, so you know who Jalen Hyatt is. You got Jamison Williams, arguably one of the fastest receivers in the league. You add Jalen Hyatt, who is one of the fastest receivers, maybe the fastest coming out of this year's draft. How would you feel about that? What would be your ideal draft for the Detroit Lions this year?
Jalen Carter at 6. At 8, I would prefer us to get like praying and barring that he's still there, like Joey Porter Jr. At 18, not 8, but at 18. In the second round at 48, I would prefer they double down and go get a linebacker, a legitimate linebacker who can threaten to take the off-ball linebacker position from Alex Anzalone.
Noah Sewell, Penny Sewell's brother out of Oregon.
Listen. They love doing family affairs anyway. That's how we end up getting both the Okoro brothers, right? But I'm just saying, like, I want it. If you notice that my picks are all on defense, first 3 picks are all on defense, right? Like, and 2 of them are to shore up the middle of the field. Like, you get Jalen Carter, you can shore the middle of the field up. I'm not saying that Lee Manil couldn't do it. He just can't do it by himself. He just can't. And so you can shore the middle of that field up by getting another competent, more dominating, penetrating type defensive tackle, right? And you get the linebacker, right? You get your cornerback, because I can assure you this, that Joey Porter Jr. is the best corner in this draft from what I've seen. There's a few other people that might be close to him, but I'll leave that for another day. But then after I go those first 3 picks, and mind you, we got 5 picks in the top 81. Okay? Then what I would do is I would come back with that next pick at 55. So we are at 48. I'll take the linebacker. At 55, I'm sitting up there, and if somehow, some way, Hendon Hooker makes it all the way down there, I doubt it, I'll take the quarterback. But if Hendon Hooker's not down there at 55, I draft the next best tight end. That's what I do.
Deep tight end class too.
So I would draft the next top tight end. And then we get to that 3rd round. With that 3rd round, I'm now going to add another linebacker. Because at that point, I'm trying to generate enough talent on defense that moving forward, I don't have to worry about, what am I getting on my line? I think our linebackers are hot garbage. They just are. So that's how I would do it if it was up to me. But it's not up to me. I have to see how he wants to do this. I think we're going to find out a lot about Brad Holmes if Dorsey ever leaves.
Gotcha. And who is this Dorsey guy? What does he do in terms of like his role within the Lions organization?
All right. So you remember what is this? The Browns, right? You remember the Browns team? They had a general manager named John Dorsey. Well,
I remember him. That's the dude who was making all the big splash signings for it. He was one who signed Odell, Jarvis. I remember him, and they fired him. Well, the Lions picked him up, and he's the senior personnel executive. And so basically what the Lions have figured out is they figured out that I need to have a comparable backup to the starter, right? And so every person has it. So, like, for example, you got Brad Holmes, but John Dorsey is the guy who he leans on. And if you watch many of the In the Den videos, you see John Dorsey telling him to calm down, let it come to you. It's going to happen. And you see Brad Holmes over there like, he antsy. I get it, right? But when you go through and you look at the whole entire team, when they brought in Dan Campbell, they brought in 2 other coaches that could have been a head coach over him with Anthony Lynn. Then they moved on from Anthony Lynn, and they made Deuce the backup, who could have then been a coach if they needed him to go. Then Deuce left,
right? They brought in another guy to be the assistant coach, Montgomery, the running backs coach. And then on the defense side of the ball, you had Don Capers, who was the competent backup and support to Aaron Glenn. And so, now he's gone. What they do, they go out and get John Fox to assist. So they're keeping the talent within the organization there. But a lot of the stuff that's happening, I believe, is closely related to John Dorsey basically being there as a mentor of such, or a coach of himself to what's happening. And so that's why I said it depends on what happens when John Dorsey leaves. That's why, I pointed that out.
And do you think that John Dorsey is going to end up getting another general manager job with, the
role
that he's played?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at that point, you're going to have to bump him up in pay and in position, which again, his position is pretty up there, but you're going to have to bump him up to keep him. Otherwise, he'd just take another GM job somewhere and keep it pushing. Everybody, listen, there's going to be some teams this year who are going to be like, we done with this coach, we done with that coach. I need a new general manager. And he's going to be on the list.
Absolutely. I believe I remember John Dorsey now. I remember that name. You kept saying Dorsey. I was about to ask, like, what's his full name? And then you said, I was like, I remember him. I do remember him. And he did a very good job at acquiring talent in free agency. His drafts were pretty good too. Like, it makes sense now. And it kind of reminds me, like, you remember, I don't know if you remember, but back in, was it the 2013, 2014 draft when Blake Bortles and Johnny Manziel and Teddy, I think it was 2014, wasn't it?
2014, what are you talking about with Teddy Bridgewater?
Yeah, and Johnny Manziel. I can't remember what draft it was, but I remember Jerry Jones wanted Johnny Manziel. And his son said, "No, don't you take Johnny Manziel. You better take Zach Martin." And they pretty much took Zach Martin due to the help of Jerry Jones getting a little bit of advice from his sons and stuff like that. So John Dorsey kind of has that role. He's kind of like an advisor to Brad Holmes in a sense.
And not to mention, if you look at the resume of John Dorsey and what he's done, he also helped that in 2020, he was like a front office consultant to the Eagles. Right. And then before that, he was the general manager of Kansas City from 2013 to 2017. Right. I'm sorry. Before the Eagles, he's the general manager of the Cleveland Browns from 2017 to 2019, and then he was with Kansas City 2013 to 2017. So Kansas City, Cleveland, Philly, and now Detroit. It's a pattern where this man is gone. It's almost like the Bill Belichick thing, where not Bill, but Bill Parcells. You know how Bill Parcells would be brought in to rebuild teams? This guy, everywhere he's gone, he has acquired talent. He has 100% acquired talent everywhere he went. When he was with Kansas City and became the general manager of Kansas City, you know the first thing he went out and did? Hire Andy Reid. Just think about this. These are moves that you just can't make up. When you look at the moves he added in terms of free agency, he was very instrumental in bringing in Derek Johnson and Jamal Charles and Jeremy Maclin and some of these. Like, just look at his history.
And then you talk about the decision to trade up for Patrick Mahomes.
Man, listen, bro. I'm not saying Brad Holmes don't do nothing. I'm just saying he has somebody that he can lean on, a very good mentor.
It seems like you guys got the wrong guy in the general manager position.
No. I want him where he's at, because I want him to be able to have a approach to it that allows him to say, you know what, I like what you see here, but if you don't feel really good about this, don't make this move. And he's grooming them. And him being in that room also allows other people to see how he does business and how he evaluates and stuff. So I like the teacher position of it, because it allows for other people to see it. In my opinion, the guy that I think is in training to learn how to do this job, if Brad Holmes don't work out, is already on the team. And I think that's Chris Spielman. I think Chris Spielman is picking the brain and learning everything he can from John Dorsey.
You want to know something crazy? I was just about to say, if John Dorsey gets a GM job, maybe Rick Spielman could potentially end up filling that role, because Rick Spielman had a really good run as the GM for the Minnesota Vikings. I actually want to get him on the pod soon.
Yeah, but they got his brother here already. And so you get a chance to learn from your brother where he learned. You get a chance to learn from John Dorsey as well. I'm just making the points that the Lions are going to be in a position where they can truly do some things. And to me, the expectations are going up. And so at that point, we have to see how they respond to higher expectations. Because when they go up for the team, they go up for every player on the team. Now, in my opinion, based on what James Houston did, he would 100% have earned a starting spot, in my opinion. In fact, they've gotten people like Romeo Okwara to take a pay cut. Great, right? Which is usually another word for we give you most of that money up front and then you're going to get a reduced amount over that time. Cool, right? But James Houston would be my starter because for a guy to come in and do what he did, I had a lot of people mad last year when I said he's the best pass rusher on his team. Oh, no, he isn't. Okay. Man, Aiden Hutchinson is. Man, listen, sir. This is just not the truth. Okay, we can try this if you want, but no, this is not it. So again, you have to look at everything in a big picture vacuum, right? If the Lions' expectation per Vegas say that we should be winning the division, the fans should probably look at that and go, "Do we have enough to win the division? Did we do enough to win the division?" Because the biggest problem that you came into the season with was what? Defense. And have the Lions done enough to address those needs? We're going to find out when the draft comes. And then we're going to find out after the draft comes when they hit that second to third wave of free agents. We're going to find out when they make some trades. Because to me, if I'm the Lions, if it's me, I'm calling up Arizona and being like, after the draft is over, and being like, hey, you got David Collins. You got, what do you want for Isaiah Simmons? Hey, I tell you what, we're gonna right or wrong. I'll send you a Cuda, you send me Isaiah Simmons, and I give you a pick.
Oh, don't do Arizona like that. Even though Cuda would, I don't know, man. You know how we are about Cuda.
I told people if Okudah plays safety, he'll be phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So
me and you both been saying that for how many years? He's a safety.
I got cussed out for it.
Man, we both did. both did. It's like we both did. But if you guys haven't already, make sure that you guys listen to the JT Sports Podcast. Every single episode of the podcast, every video that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. Rate us 5 stars if you enjoy. Share this episode on your social media platforms with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. Once again, we got special guest Luke G's Field Review on. Make sure that you guys subscribe to his YouTube channel. I want to keep going, though. I want to go a little bit off Detroit now. This Lamar Jackson contract situation, a lot of people been talking about it. A lot of people been trying to figure out what's next for Lamar Jackson. And I don't know if you've seen my Instagram reel, but it did over 130K views. And all I really said was that when it comes to paying Lamar Jackson, regardless if he wants a fully guaranteed deal or how much fully guaranteed money he wants, the hindrance for him getting what he's asking for, I think, has been the fact that he's been unable to stay healthy for the last 2 years. And I feel like that's a pretty reasonable point. The NFL is a business. And plus, nobody really wants to give out that kind of guaranteed money that the Browns gave out to Deshaun Watson. So the owners really are trying to make sure that not just Lamar, but more players don't get fully guaranteed deals. And when you look at Lamar Jackson's future in Baltimore, what do you think happens? Because they put the non-exclusive franchise tag on him. Any team can offer him, but if they want to sign him, they have to give up 2 first-round picks, and of course they have to pay him. How do you see this playing out?
There was an article that came out recently where Lamar Jackson himself tweeted that he was offered a $133 million fully guaranteed deal. $133 million fully guaranteed deal. I think it was like 3 years or something like that, right? I'm trying to remember how it was.
Oh, I remember it was like so it was basically, this is what it was, right? It was supposed to be one of the biggest deals in the history of the league. It was supposed to be like a Russell Wilson kind of deal. So basically, he would have been paid somewhere around $49 million annually, right? And he would have been given 133 years fully guaranteed. Over, the deal was rumored to be around 5-6 years. But the problem is that, you know, like, it wasn't enough fully guaranteed money for him, because the deal was supposed to be a total value of around 256 million, which is around, you know, where Russell Wilson's contract is.
See, I just look at it like this. And this is what his tweet says. You know, this is what he says in his tweet. You know, it says 133 3-year fully guaranteed, but I need an agent. Yeah, you do, because why would you turn that down? Like, like, I'm not trying to be funny, right? Like, even if you were to do the average, it's like 44.3 million a year, right? He's trying to get closer. He feels that he should get paid more than Deshaun Watson. He should be right behind Patrick Mahomes. That's what he feels. All right. I get it. But you're talking about a fully guaranteed deal for a guy who has not played a full season in his career yet. Right. And my attitude to it is if I'm a team looking at Lamar Jackson, I'm going to give up 2 first-round picks, and that man turned down 133 million fully guaranteed for 3 years. What do I got to pay him? What does he want? 55 million a year?
And I think that's what the problem is. Like, you see a lot of people in the media, when they started talking about the potential of what Lamar Jackson could be getting paid prior to the season started, they all were expecting him to get a market-breaking deal or a market-setting deal, right? But then he ends up having a deadline where, you know, he wants the deal to be reached, or if not, he wants to focus on the season. And what a lot of people don't really want to admit is that Lamar played this season and he rolled the dice and gambled on himself. He wanted to prove that he was worth the contract that he was asking for, rather if it was fully guaranteed or a certain amount of guaranteed money. He betted on himself, because the Ravens and Lamar Jackson have 2 different viewpoints on how they view his market value. And what Lamar Jackson's market value isn't what, well, his market value, in his opinion, isn't close to what the league values him, or even the Ravens, which is why they went ahead, they put the non-exclusive franchise tag on him, which is similar to how NBA free agency works. And they pretty much said, you know what, we're going to let the league dictate your value. But it seems like none of these NFL teams want to do the heavy lifting for the Baltimore Ravens, because they might feel like the Ravens will match any offer. So it's like with Lamar Jackson, it's like, if you're a GM and you're Eric DaCosta and you're in this situation with Lamar, how do you play this situation?
Well, that's the problem, you know, because you got to look at it. If he play it and say, well, I'll just play under the franchise tag, you're talking about 32 million a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if you are looking at it, you know, by the average of the year, Aaron Rodgers is the highest paid quarterback, right? Followed by Russell Wilson. And for the people who wonder where I'm getting this from, it's over the cap. Feel free to go check it out. Followed by Russell Wilson, followed by Kyler Murray, followed by Deshaun Watson, then Patrick Mahomes, right? So, you know, my attitude to it is you had a deal that would have put you right behind Patrick Mahomes. It would have put you ahead of Josh Allen. It would have put you ahead of Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones, Stafford, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff. You'd have been ahead of all of them. You're trying to get a deal that puts you ahead of certain people, and I get it. But the reality is this is not going to work out in your favor, because if you sit out, they still hold the rights to you, and you lose money.
And it doesn't benefit you, because you got to be on the field to play. to show that you're worth the contract that you want.
And if you play and try to play that, oh, I'm hurt card, that don't help you because you already been hurt.
Exactly.
So as far as I'm concerned, it behooves him to get a deal done. Now he can try to wait it out, throughout the season and say, oh, okay, I'm just waiting. But at the end of the day, he don't really have unless there's a card that ain't nobody told me about. You know how in Uno, how you get that guy that be like, I got Uno, and you get to draw 4 waiting for him. That unless he got to draw 4 waiting for him, I don't know what to tell him.
Yeah, it's like I think the media, and this is what frustrates me. It's like people seem to not understand how the NFL works. Nobody gives a damn that you want MVP in 2019 because you want to know why? That was 2019. It's 2020. We live in a world that asks, what have you done for me lately? Right. And it's kind of the similar thing with Cam Newton. Like Cam Newton thinks that he's still the same player that he was when he won MVP, and he's obviously not. And I think with Lamar Jackson, listen, if the dude didn't have the injury concerns, I wouldn't have any problem giving him the money that he's asking for, because the dude, when he plays, he wins 75% of his games. He is one of the most talented QBs in the league. I understand that. And I really think with Lamar Jackson, even if he's not asking for a fully guaranteed deal, I really think the issue is the guaranteed money. And I do think he has a pretty good point with that. Like, even though 133 million guaranteed isn't bad, I do think it's a tad bit disrespectful. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes gets 141.5 million guaranteed. Josh Allen's getting 150. And you say, well, JT, Lamar isn't better than Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And I probably would agree with that. But then you got Aaron Rodgers, who his contract had 150 mil guaranteed. Russell Wilson has 165 guaranteed. Kyler Murray has 189.5 million guaranteed. And we know about Deshaun Watson, but even if you don't want to include the Deshaun Watson thing, it's like you got Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers getting more fully guaranteed money. So it's like, would you give Lamar 200 million guaranteed?
I feel like it's not the fully guaranteed money that's the issue for him. I feel like it's the clauses that they're going to put in there, right? Like, hey, if you get this money if you play this many games. Right now that becomes fair. And that becomes fair. Right. Like, and that's where the problem comes in at, because now you're talking about, okay, so if I sit there, if I look at his history, right? If I look at his history of being on the field, right? And if I did it just based on game starts, right? I just did it based on game starts. I didn't look at total games he played or anything like that, right? And he's been in the league, 5 years?
About, yeah.
So that means he averages about 12 games a season. So if I were to put a clause in there that says, hey, if you play 14 games, you meet the standard, I can see that being a problem. Because now the power still lies on the team to turn around and be like, oh, you hurt? Yeah, you can't come in because you're hurt. And they can still get around having to pay that money that way. So I think it's more the clauses that's the issue than it is the fully guaranteed money. Keep in mind, he was offered 133 for 3 years. And in my opinion, most of these players need to start betting on themselves with shorter deals with the most money they can get in that short deal. And then telling the team, hey, you know what? I played 3 years on this one, but I'll give the fully guaranteed deal for 3 years, but that third year I want option on it. What you mean you want option? I want option, meaning if I lived above my 3-year contract, I get to come back and ask for more money. And if you don't want to negotiate, I can opt out of my contract. Now we talking business. Because that's what they do in the NBA. They'll sit there and get their money, but they'll put an option in there and be like, yeah, I don't like how this going. I'm out.
Yeah, right? But you see, in the NBA, though, it's like it's a players' league. In the NFL, though, it's like the players don't have as much control because the owners, like they're so good at being able to, make team-friendly deals. And in the NBA, it's like it's more player-centric. You're more at the mercy of the players.
Because in the NFL, players don't know how to fully value themselves appropriately to do it. So, for example, if I come to you right now, right, and let's say JT, you decide to sell a brand new PS5. If you come and I say how much you want for the PS5, and you say, well, how much you willing to give, and I say I give you $100 for it, and you take it. You think I give a shit if you cheated yourself? No. You need to figure out a way to value yourself appropriately. And to me, a guy who was really good at that was Darrelle Revis. Even Richard Sherman was good at that. He was able himself. Yeah, you was able to, they were able to get people to value them and get these short deals and get what they wanted out of it. And so to me, what Lamar is doing, I'm not mad at, because when you look up and see that Deshaun Watson got a fully guaranteed $230 million deal, and I'm feeling like I'm better than him. you know what I mean? Well, let's start there. Let's start with that number.
It's like, how do you think because I've never been, we don't know how it is being in a room when contract negotiations are ongoing between the player and the organization. It's like, how do you really think it's playing out? So let's say I'm Lamar Jackson and you're Eric DeCosta and the Baltimore Ravens owner, and I tell you, hey man, I need the kind of money Deshaun Watson's getting. And you're saying, nah, bro, we love you, bro, but you've been injured for 2 years in a row. And Lamar Jackson, he has no agent. So you're basically face to face telling somebody, no, you're not worth what you're asking for. Do you think that kind of makes it a little bit personal, or Lamar Jackson still is able to distinguish that this is just the business part of it? Do you think if the Ravens give him the deal, that if they come to an agreement on a deal, do you think that would be able to mend their problems? Or do you feel like the relationship kind of has soured so much because Lamar probably feels like the Ravens don't value him and he might just want out?
I feel like business is personal, right? If me and you are doing a transaction, it's got to be personal. You're talking about my money being spent to you, or you spending your money with me. It's got to be personal, right? And it's not a matter of him saying, oh, do y'all value me or not? It's a matter of him having to understand what gives him the best chance to secure his legacy. So if he really wants to secure his legacy and be able to say, you know what, I was the greatest quarterback in the NFL history, or whatever he want to do to try to, establish his legacy, you probably need to figure out how to take a big enough deal that's going to be able to be reworked over and over and over to get talent around you. This is something that Patrick Mahomes learned quickly from Tom Brady. He's done it over, restructured. Give me this money up front, I'll take it, and we'll just keep working it from there. As long as I got my money, it ain't like I'm losing out. So if he's going to do that, cool. I think that for him going into it, he's looking at it and saying, I have been the best thing on your squad. And prior to me, here's what the problem is. But he runs into a problem. He runs into a year where Huntley did okay. He runs into a team who has won Super Bowls with Hasselbeck. What the hell is the damn name? No, Trent. Was it the hell that damn Trent Dilfer? Trent Dilfer is the damn name. He just looked like that bald head thing. But you're saying, he's won. They're won with that. And then on top of that, you have a chance to draft a quarterback that you can sit this year. But the real problem is, and I hate to say it this way, but it's the reality. The NFL needs to stop paying quarterbacks all this money. The highest paid position in the NFL should be edge rushers. They should be edge rushers and left tackles or left and right tackles. Why? Because the quarterback, everything he does is contingent upon everybody else being in the right spot in the perfect time sequence. But the tackle is a standalone thing. He has to block that guy out, right? The pass rusher is a standalone. They don't depend on a D tackle. You're the edge. You depend on whooping the guy in front of you butt and getting to the quarterback and getting to the running back to close off the lanes. So when the NFL starts to realize, stop paying these quarterbacks like this, it'll stop. But to people who have played quarterback in college, people who have played quarterback in high school, to people who feel like, no, quarterback should be the highest paid, it's the most important position, blah, 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 blah. Right? To the people who say that, okay, cool. But in a league where you have a salary cap, you know what I mean?
It's like if you allocate so much money to Lamar, how are you going to be able to pay everybody else? And it's like,
how do you pay everybody else?
And I feel like the Ravens are in a bad spot because, this makes them look really bad, and the Ravens have always been viewed as one of the classiest organizations in the NFL. So it's the fact that, what does it say to your locker room? Because I don't know if you've seen like the other players that, like the interaction that Rashad Bateman had, because his GM pretty much said that, I don't really think I've done a great job of drafting receivers, and he kind of felt a little bit slighted with that. And I just think that, with Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, potentially Trevor Lawrence about to go into deals, I feel like Joe Burrow really is going to be that quarterback who really completely breaks the market and gets way more than what Deshaun Watson made fully guaranteed.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on that before we move on to the last thing?
I feel like Joe Burrow has been in a trajectory that is very scary and reminiscent of what you would expect out of a quarterback. And so my attitude to it is if he breaks the bank, I feel bad for him, because again, you're in a salary cap league. And so the more money they give you, the less money they have to put to other resources. Mm-hmm. So you better be prepared to live up to that bill. Everybody listens to the bill. I don't care. I mean, even in life, you take a girl out, you ask her where she want to go. She don't name McDonald's or she don't name Chipotle. She started naming these fancy restaurants. You're trying to figure out what we talking about here. Like, because at that point, the bill is going to be there, right? And so I'm not saying that means that you're entitled to anything. I'm not saying that you should be expected to get anything in return. But what I'm saying is too much is given, much is expected. And so I just think that Joe Burrow is going to change a lot of that up. But if he's smart, he'll get his money and he'll figure out how to do it, which would still allow for him to add talent and do it. Because if he gets his money and then they mess around and pay Jamar Chase, now all your money wrapped up in 2 players on offense. That's a bad situation.
Now, the last thing I want to ask you before we let you go, we appreciate you being on here. How good do you think Justin Fields will be in 2023? Now, you're a Lions fan now. Now, you watched Justin Fields. Now, the second time you played against Justin Fields, you pretty much shut him down. But the first time, this dude was going ham. Like, from watching Justin Fields, do you think he could have like a Jalen Hurts kind of ascension? Or do you think he's kind of going to be stuck in the mode of a pretty okay dual threat quarterback, kind of in that Vince Young category? He'll make a couple of Pro Bowls, but long term, he just isn't a valuable solution as your franchise QB.
I think it depends on how you view his head coach and his offensive coordinator, right? If they understand how to use his strengths, then he can be sky's the limit, right? But if you're telling me that you're going to neglect and continue to fail to build an offensive line around him, yeah, he's going to struggle. You're telling me that, hey, we move on from David Montgomery and you go out and sign Homer. Okay. You bring in Foreman. All right, cool. You already have Khalil
Herbert.
So, okay. But if those guys can't get going behind an offensive line that can't keep people upright, what are we talking about here? So, again, this is one of the reasons why I don't believe in paying these quarterbacks this money, because everything is too contingent upon other stuff being appropriate. I've watched people who was able to survive those beatings like Stafford, right? I've watched people who started getting hit and couldn't handle it and started crying like Aaron Rodgers. Spent all the time being clean, having every top receiver you can get. And then all of a sudden they take the receivers away and give you some newer receivers who are just as good, but your line ain't that strong and we're whining. So it depends on how you view the head coach. It depends on how you use the offensive coordinator. Justin Fields, in my opinion, like many quarterbacks, if a storm is perfect, they'll perform. I don't care who it is. Hell, look at Geno Smith. Talk about a resurgence. All they did was say run the ball, make him throw a few passes short here and there. He'd be okay. That's all they did. So when you look at it, tell me how you feel about their offensive coordinator. Tell me what you think about their head coach. And tell me, do you believe that those people can come up with a game plan that uses his skills? When you look at the Eagles, Jalen Hurts succeeded because they used him similar to how they would use him in college. They let him move the pocket. They let him move around. The line was taught, hey, we're going to call plays where you're taught to move your line and your blocking assignment to the right. You know what I'm saying? This is a bootleg. Y'all gonna move to the right. He gonna bootleg out to the left and get him in space. If it's not there, take off and run. See, they were doing things to do that. And a lot of times these coaches and these teams get players and they don't use them to the strength or to the way that they was used in college that got them drafted. And that's the problem. So if you're telling me that Jalen Hurts is going to be used to the strength that got him drafted, then he's going to be a problem. But if you're telling me that they ain't quite figured out how to build something around him, then he's about as harmful as eating blueberries in the wild. Right? Like it's not going to shake anything up. Like I said, it's one of those things. And so you have to do that. You have to do that when looking at it, okay? You have to look at how he's going to be used in period. You know what I'm saying? How are they going to view him?
Who do you think is the best rookie cornerback in this draft class? The consensus out there is either Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, my guy Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois, or Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State, the son of Joey Porter. Who do you think is the top cornerback in this draft class? Why you feel they are the best cornerback in this class, and what separates them from the others?
To me, the number one is Joey Porter Jr. But you got to also have to look at what you want, right? If you want a more physical corner, who I think is probably teetering closer to a safety position, then you might want Witherspoon, right? You know what I mean? You might want Witherspoon if you want the more physicality dude. But my problem with Witherspoon, he doesn't lack the full ball skills that I would like to see from a corner. I've seen too many times where he's running with receivers, the receivers looking back, and he has to turn his head yet. He just throws his arm up. I don't like that. Christian Gonzalez to me is one of the guys that I look at and I go, he has all the talent in the world and he knows it. The problem is because he knows it, he sometimes plays a little too cocky, in my opinion. And when I look at him, I think to myself, you would make 20 more plays if you actually stay sound in your technique. He relies so much on his athletic ability that at times he gets lazy in his technique. And I've seen him face guard people down the field or not even touch you at the line of scrimmage. And I'm trying to figure out, well, you in press position. Why aren't you putting them hands on him? Play mind games with him. And he doesn't do that all the time. But Joey Porter Jr., you get a little bit of it all around. You get a guy who can play with the ball skills, who can still be physical. He probably ain't as physical as Witherspoon, but he's very physical. And he has no problem harassing you down the field. He'll get you a few pass interference calls because he's going to beat the brace off of you while he's in press position, right? He's going to get what they say handsy and stuff. But I just when I look at the cornerbacks, I feel like Joey Porter Jr. has shown me more consistent play than the other guys. So when you look at Joey Porter Jr., a guy who you can go, okay, well, he didn't do much. He didn't have the interceptions. I know. He didn't have the force. I know. It wasn't like he had all these tackles. I hear everything you're saying. But what he did do is he harassed the hell out of people, and the ball was not allowed to get to you. And that's what you want. When you go through and you look at Witherspoon, he was in that on that team for a minute. Play all 4 years at Illinois, right? Yeah, he got 4 or 5 interceptions in his career. He got a forced fumble in his career. He got like 25 pass deflects, with the most of them coming in his last season, right? You're like, okay, cool. These are all great information. Oh, he got the right. You look at all that stuff, right? But when I look at him, he lacks some of the most basic stuff. And yes, it can be taught. But I'm like, bro, you need to know when to play the player and when to play the ball. Sometimes I've noticed in games on certain downs and distance, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, a little bit too aggressive at times. And it's like, when it comes to me, I'm a little bit conflicted between Joey Porter or Devon Witherspoon, because with Devon Witherspoon, it's like the dude has a lot of great plays, and some people try to compare him to Jeff Okuda. I said, bro, don't disrespect my guy Devon Witherspoon like that's like. I feel like in this draft class, when you look at Devon Witherspoon, it's like he has potential to be one of the best cornerbacks in the game. He can have an immediate impact right away, but it's just like, can you really teach a player who's so used to being so aggressive, and he can be really handsy at times? Like, can you really break somebody out of that habit?
Yeah. Hey, listen, The moment you become uncoachable, then you're useless to me, right? Like I don't want if you're talking about. Listen, let me tell you something. It's not just football. This is life. In life, you must be coachable. Somebody should be able to correct you in your life, whether it's your friends, your mother, your father, your pastor, whether it's your teacher, somebody should be able to correct you and get you together. When you are uncoachable, you're useless. You've got all the answers.
No,
you ain't got no problems. Like it sounds strange to say it out loud, but no, you cannot be uncoachable. And to me, yeah, I don't. It can't. Yeah, you can coach it out of him. I have to believe you can coach it out of him. When I look at Gonzalez, like I said, this guy really should have every season. He should average 5 interceptions a season. He should. He won't, but he should.
And when you look at Joey Porter, like his film, I think may be the best because he went against Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm pretty sure you already know about how much of a dog he is. And he did out of all the cornerbacks who've matched up on them, Keely Ringo. I don't know if you remember Keely Ringo. That's the guy who everybody had mocked to the Lions during the season.
yeah. I mean, but they're gonna mock the cornerback because that's their job. Their job is to create things to have conversations about. So that's their job. Right? So yeah, I'm going to mock these people to them because my job is to get people to talk, right? And so I get it, right? Like I full-fledged get it.
And when it comes to Joey Porter being the best cornerback in the draft, I'm still really high on Devon Witherspoon. I probably still would rank Devon Witherspoon number 1 over Joey Porter. I do like Joey Porter a lot. Maybe I am a little biased because I do have a friend that also played cornerback for Illinois named Tavon Nicholson as well. He had number 10. And Illinois' defensive coordinator, their defensive backs coach, has done an incredible job. When you look at the cornerbacks Illinois has produced, Nate Hobbs, slot cornerback for the Raiders, only decent D-back that they've drafted. And since the last decade, you also have Kirby Joseph at safety. It's like, I think Devon Witherspoon can turn out pretty well. He does have the versatility to play safety. He is scheme versatile. He can play man-to-man if you want to run a predominantly man defense. He can play zone, cover 3, and whatnot. But overall, I pretty much would agree with you. Well, I wouldn't. I could understand why Joey Porter is your cornerback 1, and I'll push back against it. Like I probably would say it's 1A, 1B between Devon Witherspoon and Joey Porter, and here's how I view it.
No, that's fair. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is to we make a mistake in trying to find out who is the most pro ready, right? Who's the most pro ready day 1 starter guy, but we should be trying to figure out who's going to be the better pro. Right? Like who's going to be the guy that's going to be the better player overall, long term, and everything like that. And when I evaluate cornerbacks, I go by people who have done it at a high level and what they say. I go by what Deion said. Deion said, if I'm in press position, I'm going to play mind games with you. I may pop you this time, but the next 4 times, I may pop you 4 plays back to back. Hey, I might spend the whole quarter putting hands on you. But by the second quarter, you get to reaching out thinking I'm finna put you in a jam and ain't nothing for you to grab onto. Now you don't slow your route up. Now I'm in your head. I look at people like Darrell Revis, who talks about how he uses the sideline to his advantage. He keeps those receivers on the outside to the sideline and dare them to try to make a catch in a smaller radius. So I take all that and I put it together and I look at cornerbacks and I say, who met those standards? That's why last year I thought we should, we was going to overtake Sauce Gardner or Kyle Hamilton, and I was on the Kyle Hamilton train. And everybody trying to make him a linebacker. And I'm like, he's not a linebacker. Oh, yes, he is. I'm like, they've used that guy in the slot. They've used him at safety. They've used him in the box. And I said, what you don't realize is they got more out of him than we did out of Kirby Joseph. But people are going to spin that differently because Kirby Joseph got the interceptions, right? But when I was sitting there putting those same standards on an edge rusher to get sacks, I was told that that's not fair. So like I said, you have a biased fan base who see things a different way. But the reality is that I'm looking for those guys who are technically sound. Those little things. Joey Porter Jr. wants to fight you in a phone booth. Gonzalez thinks he's cute, so he expects for you to just come to him. Witherspoon is like, okay, y'all, I'm just a dog. Like if you were to break it down, like on some Dragon Ball Z stuff, Witherspoon would be like Vegeta, right? And Joey Porter Jr. would be Goku. And I feel like Krillin would be Gonzalez.
Krillin. I would at least give him Piccolo.
No, I can't give him Piccolo. He ain't because Piccolo took pride in what he did.
Oh yeah,
you see what I'm saying? And he Piccolo wasn't cocky. Piccolo's confidence was high because he had already put the work in. With Gonzalez, he just relying on pure God gift talent, and I'm like, nope. The last time I saw that was a guy named Greedy Williams, and I adamantly was against it. But I think he's better than Greedy Williams. I'm just telling you the attitude is what scares me. That's all.
All right, everybody. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Once again, love having my guy Luke G on the pod. It was a pleasure having you on, man. We talked about a lot of things for a very long time, too, man. Very long time.
Yeah, I mean, cut it up, man. Make about 4 or 5 of them. Make about 4 or 5 videos.
You already know what we about to do. We about to squeeze. We got about at least 8 segments out of this, man. But one more time, let the people know where they can find you at and what you have planned for the channel moving forward as we approach the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's Luke G's Field Review on YouTube, and what you can basically do is go to Luke G's Field Review. You're going to see basically a photo of Luke Cage, one of my favorite heroes for a lot of reasons. But yeah, you come on there. It's a show that's going to allow for you to be a part of it. You are a part of the content as much as I am. I may be the person facilitating it, but you are the reason that it works. And it's a show that is going to talk about the Lions and the Lions matchups throughout the season, their transactions, their moves. I generally do film study. I haven't done as much due to, work, but I'm getting back around to it. And on top of it, you're going to get the cold, hard truth. Whether you agree or disagree, at least you know that you're going to get a consistent response from me. And that's what you can expect, an objective, consistent response.
Once again, you guys make sure that you guys subscribe to Luke G's Field Reviews. Follow him on all of his social media platforms. I will have them linked down in the pinned comment section down below in the description. And make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast, available on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. And once again, Luke G, thanks for coming on.
Hey, listen, thanks for having me. Thanks for, for the invite. Thanks for, being a supporter of the channel. I've been rocking with you for a minute. And it's been nothing but love. I mean, you went all the way from grade school to college, and probably in a few more years be out of college and on TV, then I ain't gonna hear from you no more. But at least I can say, hey, I was on his show. I was talking to him. I know him, right? So it's been a pleasure, man. I enjoy doing this a lot, man, for real.
Man, I promise you, man, when I graduate the end of this year. I graduate a little early. You'll probably still be hearing from me. I don't really anticipate me, trying to go big. I kind of want to make this big, you feel me? So we definitely still going to remain in touch. Always enjoy your insight. It's always a great time talking football, and time goes by really fast when you're talking football and you're having a great conversation, and you can respect everybody's opinions, and you can still disagree without, having to call somebody a idiot and stuff like that. Like, oh my goodness, after this, when we get off, I got to show you my Lamar Jackson reel. You just got to read the comments. It's like people were calling me a coon, saying I was like a racist, or I was Uncle Ruckus, all because I was like, bro, this is just the business side of the NFL. But once again, thank you for coming on, Luke G. And I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast.